Kind of a layer on the inside. Exciting. That would be embarrassing. Imagine. Yeah. It's
Call meeting to order. Please join me in the button. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Roll call will show that all 7 members are present, but Tracy Redmond is our newest member, and we'll also congratulations be on the re-election. We'll turn it over to our interim town clerk, Julie Trotter, right now for the administration of the oaths to our newly elected municipal office. Julie?
Okay. I'm going to say the oath 3 times. And then the select board member, over to the fourth. Okay. I, your name is I, your name. You swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. So long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. So help me God. Your name. I, do swear that I will faithfully discharge. I swear that I will faithfully discharge. To the best of my ability. The duties incumbent on me as a select board member. duties and select board member for the town of Dover-Foxcroft for the town of according to the Constitution and laws of the state. According to the Constitution and laws of the state. So help me. I, your name, do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. And of the state. And of this state. So long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. So long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. So help me God. I, your name. I, do swear that I will faithfully discharge. Swear that I will faithfully discharge. To the best of my abilities. To the best of my abilities. The duties incumbent on me as assessor for the town of Dover-Foxcroft. Duties incumbent upon me as assessor. According to the Constitution and laws of the state. According to the Constitution and laws of the state. So help me God. One more. I, your name. Do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. And of this state. And of this state. So long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. So long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. So help me God. And I, your name. Do swear that I will faithfully discharge. Do swear that I will faithfully discharge. To the best of my ability. To the best of my ability. The duties incumbent on me as overseer of the poor. The duties incumbent upon me as overseer of the poor. For the town of Dover-Foxcroft. For the town of Dover-Foxcroft. According to the Constitution and laws of the state. According to the Constitution and laws of the state. So help me God.
All right. We'll move on to the organizational part of the meeting. Any thoughts on who would you like to have as chair of the board for the coming year?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Thought about that. That's normal on the thought to continue as chair.
What we will do is we'll have a vote on that, and if people don't want me, then we'll have another nomination. We'll vote on someone else. Okay, so I have been nominated. All those in favor of having me, putting up with me for another year?
I thought we agreed before they were gonna rotate the chair.
Unfortunately, that didn't have broad agreement.
Oh, okay.
That was my preference. All right, so,
Well, I would just speak to that. I feel like you're an excellent chair, and continuity is really helpful as we move from, we have a lot of things that we're sort of in the middle of.
yes, I've noted.
I think that, it's really helpful to have Tom continue as our chair, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to. Thank you.
Why don't we just revisit this in a year? And because what Cindy is saying is now is probably not the best time to be changing up, but there's no reason why we can't change things. And maybe we could have further discussion about how a rotation might work. Because I know that was an idea that was brought up, but it kind of just came up.
Actually, I suggested it. That's the way it used to be done 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I have no intention of serving as chair beyond this coming year.
Okay, so then why don't we, I don't think we need a vote, why don't we just propose and look at
The
it?
vote has already been taken.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So next year you'll have that.
Excellent.
All right, so we need a vice chair. Anybody wants to nominate the vice chair?
I don't mind being the vice chair. I've been told that I cannot be the chair by my chair.
Your wife threatened bodily harm.
There's Lori's present, I don't want there to be any paper trail. But I was encouraged to not be the chair, but vice chair should be fine.
Okay, so someone nominates me? Bill, thank you. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, good. Yeah.
So typically, it's not an automatic or an assumption that the vice chair becomes chair.
Correct.
Because we visit that every year, so I
Yep,
just wanted to
right.
say that.
Yep, and that's why I think I need to wait.
For Aaron, I
Yeah.
wanted to say that.
All right, good. So that's taken care of. The next item we have is the sheet of municipal appointments. It's a page and a half. Covers a lot of different things from tax collector, excise tax collector, road commissioner, town clerk, treasurer, police officers, code enforcement officers. You get the picture. So, I need a motion to, sign that.
I move. Sign it.
Second? Second by Emery? Okay, all in favor? I believe that was in the, blue.
It's in the blue folder.
Blue folder.
Yeah.
That's
Anything that needs.
been passing around.
Yeah.
Passing
I
around.
got it.
No, either of them.
Okay, so that's taken care of. Any adjustments to this agenda? I don't see any. Moving on to item G, which is committee assignments. The select board has 4 committees, administration, assessing, trust funds, promotional and development, recreation, airport, and cemeteries. And then public works, wastewater, and solid waste. And the 4th is police, fire, and welfare. Tracy has agreed to step into the vacancies, that are under the police, fire, and welfare, and also under the promotional and development. The only issue I see there is, we need a chair for promotional and development. I'm on that committee, but I'm also the chair of, public works, wastewater, and solid waste. So I would, suggest that I move up into the chair of promo and development, and that either Steve or Emery, move up to the chair for public works, wastewater, and solid waste. That make sense?
Yeah.
Either do you have a preference on who wants to be the chair of that?
Can I nominate as a newcomer?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Steve will be the chair. All right, need a motion to approve that, new arrangement? While people serving under those spots.
Move
Okay.
to approve that, we affirm the committee membership and the. Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Takes care of the, organizational meeting. I need a motion to adjourn this and go on to the regular meeting.
Second.
Okay. Go, and that's at, 6, 4. All those in favor? All right, we'll put that to a side. Now we'll move to the regular, select board meeting for June 17th. We don't need the opening ceremonies again unless anyone wants to sing an a cappella version of the national anthem song. Listening hand. Okay. Move the consent agenda then. Is there anyone who wants to do that?
Move to approve.
Okay. Second? All in favor? We have 2 sets of minutes. Need to approve the select board meeting minutes from May 29th of this year.
Move to approve.
Second. Any questions on the minutes? Okay. All those in favor? We also have the minutes from our meeting of May 13th. Motion to approve those.
Move to approve the minutes from May 13th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any changes needed on those? All those in favor? There are no quit claim deeds. We don't have any board of assessors issues under that item, but we do have one under unfinished business with left over from our last week. We'll take that later. We don't have a public hearing today. We do have an open session for both the public and select board. The open session for the public is right now. So anyone who has any items they'd like to share, please identify yourself and tell us what's on your mind.
My name's Charlie Merrill.
Yep.
I'm keeping with a 3-minute time limit you have. I have a bunch of questions I want to ask.
Sure.
I don't necessarily need an answer after the question, but maybe you can discuss it before the meeting's over. dam, I know is gonna be discussed later, so I'm not gonna waste much time on that. The only thing I wanna say is that I guess we have an advertised debt of somewhere $6 or $8 million that's gotta be recognized and discussed and taken care of somehow down the road.
That's not a debt, that's the estimated cost
Yeah.
for repairing the dam.
I understand that, and I don't know if that's an accurate figure or not,
Well,
but
that's
it's a
part of
scary,
the issue.
it's a scary figure to the public. So in lieu of that, it looks like I noticed an ad in the paper for a new EMS director, which apparently is a new position. It was in the Gazette, and I don't know if it's in the Observer now.
Yeah.
But quite a descriptive, job description. He would be in charge of a new, part of the fire department, or EMS department, which is, as far as I know, brand new.
Yeah.
And, my question is, with what we're facing, is this is the time to take on new projects, new money, new expenses, a new position. The position is a full-time position with full-time benefits. Cost is not mentioned, but I suspect it would be fairly sizable. We already have the service in town. I understand that there's some complaints about the type of service or the quality of service. I think that could be addressed. I don't know if you people have met with Mayo and tried to resolve some of the complaints or not, but I would think that would be a logical step. I don't think that the people in town realize that what it would cost to set up an EMS branch of the fire department. The equipment alone would be close to $500,000. I understand it takes close to 3 years to get licensed. So what's this guy gonna do for 3 years at full salary? How are you gonna staff it when other EMSs can't staff theirs? You're gonna have the very same problem that they do. And that may be some of the reason for the poor service here. So I think there's a whole bunch of questions that need to be addressed. I'm not sure the public is very aware of this. I do understand that the safety committee is going to be meeting in July to discuss this. I understand they haven't approved it, and it will be up to them to make a recommendation to the full board. So I would suggest that maybe that would be a good time to have a public hearing and get this out and discuss, get some of these unknowns answered, and what this is going to cost the town, and is it really necessary?
Yeah, that position was approved in the town budget.
I understand there is some money. The figure of 190,000 has been thrown out there to get this thing going. But I understand nothing's happened yet.
Correct.
So we could use that to pay for the dam. So I think there's alternatives. I think there needs to be a lot more discussion. So that's my concern.
Our fire chief is here, Brian got that.
I know, Brian.
Yeah, Brian, do you want to speak to some of his questions that he's brought forward?
Yeah, I mean, we started this plan last year with the board. A lot of people don't know, obviously about that. What's going on is the 911 call volume is growing at such a large rate, and the public safety world is not retaining staff. Nobody wants to do the job anymore. So over the last couple of years, we've been tracking how much medical and how many times we respond with the ambulance and without an ambulance. Just last year, we responded to, I believe it was like 101 calls with no ambulance available immediately. And we're waiting 25 to 30 minutes per ambulance. Just last week, we responded 3 times in one day due to unresponsive patients. We had a critical 4-wheel accident with no trucks available. So this goal was not to replace Northern Light. That's never been the goal. We've been having meetings with Northern Light. Our goal is to have basically what we call the call company ambulance, like we do the fire department. When the EMS service falls short and Northern Light, the call volume is too high or they're down on some trucks, that we're able to protect our community at a responsible rate instead of people waiting 25, 30 minutes for an ambulance out of Glenburn, Dexter, Omni, Milo, wherever they may be coming from at the time. So this plan was never to replace the hospital, never to get into it full time, but we're looking for a safety net to make sure everybody in this community gets to the hospital with an adequate adequate amount of time. And as we see, the farther we go into it, the less people want to work, the hospital moving people. But as far as the fire service, I can't see why people want to work for the fire service instead of the private, hospital private. But we have retained, quite a lot of licenses on our department. Just in the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, I brought 3 people on the licenses. Just the other day, I handed out 2 applications for 2 more paramedics in town, another basic EMT. A lot of these people have already worked for more than once and left the agency. I can't see why, but we're community members want to help our service succeed when the other one falls short. So I know it's a lot of money, like you said, we've been talking about this for over a year. Some of the ARPA funds are gonna pay for it. I've been working with Maine EMS and the billing companies behind the scenes, but I don't know where the 3 years came from for licensing. That's never been told to us. Basically, how it is, you have to get your billing stuff set up, which we've been working on the last 8 months. And once you get your truck and equipment in service, Maine EMS comes out and inspects it. We have to have contracts in place to go online. We've had a couple meetings behind the scenes. We had another 4 in August with, the 50/50, I believe, up there right now. Some of the people up there really support the plan, some of them on the fence. Like I said, this wasn't to go in and take with them off, so that wasn't our intent. We just want to make sure that the community is protected just as if you get in a car accident, a fire, if you're having a cardiac arrest, and they call 911 and the closest ambulance is Glenburn, you want to wait 45 minutes for your loved one, or do you want to come pick you up and get you?
Well, the answer is obviously no, but I do have a question. If we may be able to streamline it, we will put in the type of calls that you take. They're not all emergencies, and are they necessary? Is there somebody else who could do it? Do you have to have a big fire truck though, or could you take a little fire truck? I mean, those are some other things that we need to know more about.
Once we get into the transporting service, anytime the EMS is unavailable, we will transport it. And we can't screen the 911 calls. When the ambulance is unavailable, it's unavailable, no matter if you got a broken toe or your cardiac arrest. We as responders, it's your emergency, not ours. So that may be the worst day of your life, that you fall down and broke your arm. It may be that another person could have put you by a car. I can't make that call. That's the person on. So we treat every call the same. You're the one having an emergency. And at nighttime right now, we only respond to certain levels of calls, cardiac arrest, overdose, unresponsive, seizures, certain levels. And during the day, we're there staffing, so we respond to all medical and health. We help with the ambulance and service. Sometimes we drive. Sometimes the patients are weak, we have to get them out of the house. Sometimes we help the patient out of the house, so the EMS providers in the truck getting stuff, getting ready. Like last night, we had a four-wheeler accident. We were moving the patient. They were all getting the ambulance truck. So it's a fluent system we've been working on for years. And we work really good with the EMS services in town. We're just, like I said, we're trying to supplement, and Dave's here, he's worked in this field for a long time, and he sees things too. And like I said, I understand it's a large chunk of money, and I understand what the town's facing, but I wouldn't have put this plan forward if I didn't feel that it was needed for the town.
All I'm asking is that the town be aware of what's going on and what the true cost is gonna be, and are they willing to pay the increase in taxes to support it, because I think they're talking about a substantial amount of money. As I understand it, there's not much reimbursement for your cost.
No, what the billing companies are telling us, they're around 30%.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a cost to the town no matter what you do.
And from day one, I've spoken to the board and the public since last year that I never said we were gonna get into money to make money. We're trying to make sure the public stays aware of that.
No, I'm not,
Charlie, I'm sorry.
but I know I've been.
I don't have a sense yet how many other people will speak, so I would like to get
Yeah,
others.
no,
Do you have any other?
well, we've got it going, so let's keep it going.
Okay. I want to give some other people a chance to speak, and
Sure.
if we have time left, if you have a follow-up
I hope
question,
you do.
we'll do that. Other folks who would like to?
My name is David Now, and my question to you is, have you worked with the mayor regional in regard to getting this pulled together?
Yes, we started a meeting last July, I believe, and it's gone quiet for about 8 months, and now it's picking up the conversations. We've had numerous meetings with the board of directors and the people involved, and we're gonna continue to have meetings for the members and develop.
And they are supportive for this to happen.
As far as I know, we haven't had anybody come out and say, stop what you're doing. So,
Yes, sir. Barry?
My name's Barry Hutchins, Highland Road. I think, maybe what I heard in the main part of the question, but maybe wasn't directly addressed, Chief, was that he was asking more so for justification on the position of the fire chief position versus more of the ambulance. So could you focus more on that?
yeah, so this happened. I'm the fire chief and run the fire department. The EMS side is another division that operates within the fire department. It's under the license. I'm not a licensed paramedic. I can't right now take on an EMS role, a fire chief role, and a code enforcement role. We need a full-time staff member that has a medic license that can assist in responding to calls during the day, because not all of our crews are EMS trained during the day. I try to staff that. There's a lot of plan, a lot of development going. We still have to meet with the board in July about that. We created this EMS director, so it needs to be a full-time position. And the fire department's growing. There's just two divisions that are gonna grow really fast, and that position needs to be dedicated for its own full-time chief to oversee. There's a lot of billing that we have to submit, run through a lot of EMS equipment, a lot of check, a lot of licenses, a lot of training, and hopefully they will assist in some of the fire staffing and do some of my work goes away as well. Just, we're such a large organization now that it's too much of a burden for me to do it.
Other questions? Yes.
Steve Robertson, I have a question about process, and I assume if Northern Light was failing, somebody did a root cause analysis of why they were failing. And is your plan solve all that? Is the mitigation plan that says we can now solve all these problems?
So last don't call me, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, we had a county board meeting with Northern Light. All the fire departments, sheriff's department, dispatch. We were all there to discuss regionally how they were gonna fix this problem regionally. Our goal is to help our citizens in Dover to fix our issue. Unfortunately, it's not our spot for the town of Dover taxpayers to pay for this truck to go to that Monson, LaGrange, all these other places that Northern Light covers. So we're trying to figure out how to fix it regionally, but sometimes it's a community problem that we have to fix. Does that make sense?
Yes and no, because I think my fear is that the problems they're having, which would be the root cause of their problems with can't hire, they can't train, they can't see people, is gonna be your problem too. Unless they're paying much more money, then you're gonna suck them away from Northern Light to you. So it's gonna make it, the problem, it's gonna create a problem.
So our position is a dual role position. There's only one position. And you have to have fire experience as well as EMS experience. A lot of people that work in Northern Light do not have fire experience. They're all EMS. So as Northern Light as a whole organization, if one person applied and we took them away from Northern Light, if their whole system collapsed and failed over one employee, they have bigger issues than that. So that was never our intention. Our intention to work together, but like I said, this position is a dual role. I gotta have someone that's also fire trained during the day for to help us as well.
Here's my last question, I got the 3 minutes. Can we see this plan? We did have a plan. Is this laid out? So we're gonna, 190 is gonna go up to 750,000? I mean, is there a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan to develop this, or we just buy a position and then see what happens and go from there?
No, I have a rough budget. Like we've already done the pre-budget of the employee, what the capital equipment cost is, what the rough truck's gonna cost, what the operating cost is. And until we get into it and fully rolling, I won't know the future cost. But like I said, it's gonna be more of a call company side, and we're only gonna be called as needed instead of a full-time basis.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
David Flaherty, I'm a resident of Dover-Foxcroft. I was also a emergency medicine provider here in town at Mayo Hospital. I now work for KDHD. I just want to support the chief. I mean, I've listened to what he's had to say. I have nothing to do with the fire department, but I've listened to what he has to say. And I think you have to think about what he's trying to do here. Mayo Regional Hospital is no longer Mayo Regional Hospital. It's Northern Lights Mayo Region. And therefore EMS is no longer, I think there's some control by Mayo Regional, or what was Mayo Regional, but it's a regional ambulance service. And so they have, the crews in Dover end up going multiple places, including a lot of transports. And it does leave the town uncovered. I've seen it, working in the emergency room, I've seen it. So I can tell you that this is our lifeboat. And what he's saying about making sure that this town is covered, I think is a very valid point. And if it's your loved one or my loved one, I want to see an ambulance on the scene. And I think that there's a lot of politics involved in this. You're talking about a very large organization who you potentially will be eating into some of their territory. And I'm sure there's a lot of pushback from Mayo. I don't know, I haven't been privy to the conversation, but I think it's something we have to think about. But my biggest thing is, I think as a community, as a small community, we have to be able to protect our people, be worried about our lifeboat right here. Now, what's going on in Tabasco or some of the other towns where Northern Light transports, I think we have to make sure we have everything we need here. The other thing is, I heard somebody talking about fire service. I think one of the things, I did a little research into this when this question came up for my own benefit. 56% of EMS services are now under fire department control. It's a nationwide thing. They have a better retention rate for EMTs and paramedics. There's also a different kind of career ladder in the fire department. And a lot of medics and firefighters go into it because there is a career ladder. In the transport service, there's a very limited career ladder moving up. And so I think that's another emphasis that people or employees look at is, where am I going to go 10 years from now? What am I going to be doing? So I think that's something else that has to be taken into consideration. So I'll end my soapbox.
Other questions? Yes, Don?
Yes, John Headley, founder and vice chair of the Friends of Dover-Foxcroft. As I speak for Kathy, my chair, and Deborah, our committee, I want to congratulate Cynthia Freeman's here on her reelection and Tracy Redmond to his election to Board of Selectmen. I also want to say Tracy stepped down from our leadership committee the morning after the election, and I want to thank Tracy for all his hard work and helping us. And it's encouraging words to tell us to move forward after all the work we put in trying to help the town. So thank you, Tracy. Good luck on the board. We look forward to working with you, Cynthia, and the rest of the board going forward. The only other thing I want to mention was I see John Neff here from the library that is the cooling center. Do you have any other cooling centers, Jack? Because I'd like to spread that word out there to the town. If you have any other cooling centers, because that's tomorrow, not for a week now. We need to let people know where they can go, because I haven't seen much on it. I shared John's post earlier, but we need to know where people can go, where they can get cool, where they can get water, all these other things. Probably a good time now. We know this information is spread to the crowd here, so we can spread that information out.
What you're seeing from John is what we have ready to activate tomorrow, but we have other needs, we'll try to meet those. But as far as what we're ready to activate, we'll be encouraging people to go to the library.
Yep. Yeah, the library is going to be open tomorrow, 9 to 7, Wednesday, 9 to 5, Thursday, 9 to 7. And it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. It's nice too, because it's not setting up a completely separate, like a center that you have to open and you have to staff. We're already staffed. We're already set up for it. So
Thank you, John.
yeah, appreciate the problem. And I think, Austin, did you say the Commons? was
Yeah,
thinking
so
about-
if there is an influx of people that is obviously, gonna overwhelm the library, the Commons is offered to open. They probably will need a volunteer to staff it, but there's another option.
Thank you. I'll share that information.
Okay. Who else would like to speak? Yes. Yeah.
This is Dawn. Just a quick question. I know, it was voted in to go ahead and hire for a communications grant writer person.
Yep.
Do you know when you're going to be announcing that? Have you established criteria? I'm just kind of wondering when that's going to be up and running.
Jack, you were talking about?
Yeah, so that position will be posted this week. I would expect that will be into mid to late July before we're ready to fill that. So, I would say within 4 weeks or so, we'll be pretty close to filling it.
And will that be someone that the community at large can get in touch with as well, I mean, to help get things communicated out on the Facebook, whatever it ends up deciding to be, a multiple pronged approach?
Well, as far
Or
as
it all have to come through the board of selectmen for you?
as far as the communications person, they're going to communicate what's going on with the town. So initiatives that we have, announcements that we have. So as far as information that's coming our way, I mean, that can also go to the communications person, but they're going to communicate, based on what the town is doing and what we need to, inform our residents about. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosalewski, you've been waiting patiently.
I hear this talk about the EMS services and all the wants and needs of the town, and I agree we need EMS services. I've been very clear about that. But we gave Northern Lights a very large resource of our assets, who should be providing a service to our community, not putting more onto the taxpayers of Dover-Foxcroft. That's my view on that. When it comes to the road issues, I've been pretty adamant about these problems. Made a comment just in the last meeting that I attended, noting that Merrill's Mills Road was a farm type road. A lot of farm traffic on it, but there's a lot of commercial traffic as well. Merrill's Mills Road continues to be unsafe for travelers with motor vehicles due to the improper placement of materials by the town. The improper materials, poorly crowned and poorly maintained road causes many conditions that do not allow Merrill's Mills Road causes it to be unsafe to travel at the current posted speed of 35 miles an hour. I've asked several times that the road speed be lowered. There's a lot of people, as I mentioned, elderly people, people who aren't familiar with the road, that don't have the foresight or knowledge of what lies ahead in these dangerous conditions. The reported conditions causes restrictions of emergency services. We're concerned about our emergency services being able to reach people and having emergency services, but we destroy our equipment on Merrill's Mills Road and roads like it. Under Title 23, subsection 365, I provided every member of this board that states failure to, under Title 23, it states highways, townways, and streets legally established shall be kept in repair so to be safe and convenient for travelers with motor vehicles. In default thereof, those liable may be indicted, convicted, and a reasonable fine imposed. The town of Dover-Foxcroft has not kept in compliance with laws requiring roads to be kept safe and convenient for travelers. Merrill's Mills Road is not in compliance with Title 23, subsection 3651. I petitioned the town's road commissioner, who fails to keep our roads in compliance with state laws. Merrill's Mills Road, in 1969, there were 2 homes. Today, there's 24 homes, 4 businesses that total revenue over $1 million a year. They operate and live on Merrill's Mills Road. Signage has been requested and ignored, indicating children, families walking and riding horses. The shoulders are littered with rocks exceeding 5 inches in diameter, making walking or riding horses dangerous with the potential to cause injuries and harm. The shoulders littered with rock causes children and adults and riders of horses to walk and ride in the travel way, causing potential to be struck by vehicles. I'm formally requesting that the speed be lowered to 25 miles an hour. Proper signage placed warning drivers and families with animals on the roadway for the health and safety of the public at large. Is there any reason why we don't want to lower the speed limit on Merrill's Mills or address the unsafe conditions? They've gone ungraded. Since I've spoken with you, the road hasn't been graded. There's craters 24 inches in diameter, 6 to 8 inches deep everywhere. When is the road going to
Well, just
be?
to answer your question on the speed limit, that is the main DOT.
Yeah, we are not, able to determine what the speed limit is. All we could do is ask the MDOT to come assess the road and assign the speed limit or assess it. The posted speed limit should be different. And they did that. They've done that, several years ago. They did do that. And as I recall, they may have lowered it very modestly.
10 miles an hour.
Maybe only like 5 or 10 miles an hour. They're typically reluctant to lower the speed limit, on roads. Doesn't mean they never will. They've done it in certain cases. But if there are conditions that would limit someone's safe speed on a road, then the motorist has that obligation to drive to the conditions of the road, regardless of what the posted speed limit is. So there's a responsibility of the motorist to look at the conditions, the time of year, is it snowing, is it whatever, and drive to those conditions.
At 10 o'clock at night, an 80-year-old person's visibility isn't as good as ours. I think we all know as we're getting older. Our visibility is poor. I've watched elderly people try to navigate that road. What you're saying is not true, Jack. I disagree with you hardly, because people traveling that road cannot tell ahead of time what the conditions are that lie ahead. They depend on the posted speed limit to dictate to them which speed they should be traveling. There's hills, there's corners, there's blind spots, there's all kinds of issues there, including the conditions of the surface of the road. Road surface material, did you read the paperwork? It's not supposed to be over 3/4 of an inch in diameter. That's large. It's supposed to be a 1/2 inch and down. And this is why we're having the problem with the constant potholing. We've got 3 to 5 inch rock in the road, trucks, tractor trailers, dump trucks, paving trucks hauling asphalt. They're all running that road and they're pounding the rock into the road. Then when it rains, they start driving over the road. The tire hits the pothole and it keeps increasing the size of it rapidly. That's not the proper material to be surfacing the road with.
Mr. Olson, thank you for your comments. So we have 20 minutes for public comments, so we've used up 20 minutes, but we will allow anyone else who's not spoken to speak. Yes, sir.
Robert Kilpatrick, West Main Street.
Right.
I just want to ask, under paragraph 9, you have a Mayo Mill Dam listed as an item number.
Right.
Will anybody be able to comment on that, or that just?
This is the public comment period right here.
So,
The agenda under the Mayo Mill is just for the select board and town manager to talk about it.
All I really wanted to say is I hope that we all can put forward a mode of decorum with this issue about the dam. There are those that are happy and some that are not, and hopefully we can find middle ground and maybe make this all work.
Very much agree with you on that. So far, we've avoided coming to fisticuffs over that issue in this room, so I hope we can continue that. Does anyone else have any comments before we close the public comment section? Hearing none, we'll move on to select board open session. Yes, and
Yeah, just, yesterday at the church council meeting at the Congregational Church, the question about warming and cooling facilities came up because of the church's, I think, sort of secondary status, and it was just a wondering question about when is an MOU gonna be ready to sign? I think it's the ultimate question. And it's not something, you know, that we need to figure out right now. I understand the library is available for this coming week, but I think there are 2 churches that are kind of standing by, and so that opportunity remains, and people are just waiting to be, I think, trained, and then be prepared to sign an MOU.
Other comments from the select board?
No.
You don't even.
I only have one.
Well, I have a list. Excuse me, I have a list. The boat launch at Browns Mill, can that be checked out because that apparently is not suitable for boats getting in, according to the picture that was sent to me.
Do we even have a launch there? We
So
have
it's,
scooped out there.
it is, basically a canoe kayak, and you have to drag
So-
and walk. It's not like a boat launch, like by the chamber with the concrete and anything like that. It was just basically an access point. It was very modestly created. It was just an access point to put a canoe or a kayak in.
So could we put up signage that back pass at your own risk or happy canoeing or whatever, so that folks don't have expectations? I would echo the signage on Merrill's Mill, as well as could we add a, sign, slow down for children on the corner of Court and River Street? People, it's a one way, but people choose to come up. There are children that are playing, there's concerts, there's activities, etc. So I would, ask that happen.
What sign would it be? What would the sign be?
Slow down, children around, whatever the signage is. Also with the recent ballot, apparently there was some confusion regarding two sides. And so what we get in the packet as a sample, is that actually what's printed?
So when we had the public hearing and we had the sample ballots,
Right.
I noted that we did a single-sided set, but that we had double-sided ballots and the samples were printed. This is a two-sided ballot. So your packets may not reflect the two sides of the two-sided ballot, but you would have seen the printing, which would have said that is a two-sided ballot.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Because some people commented that, whoops, I didn't even see that candidate listed. And I was told, use both sides on this one. So I don't know if we can post reminders to people,
Well,
but it says right on the ballot, you have completed it.
right,
So-
and once we started hearing that there were some people who were almost missing, that it was a two-sided ballot,
Yeah.
then we reiterated to the ballot clerks as they're handing ballots out. Look at both sides of each ballot, because some of these, or at least one of these, is two-sided.
I'm almost done. Thank you for including the list of permits that have been, issued this last year. That's very helpful information. Also, I'll stop tonight, but, there's a light that flickers on East Main, past Bucks or whatever the name is now. I'll try to get a poll number, but that was flickering. Also, do we have a grading schedule? And a pavement schedule for this year's work?
So I can tell you what we're gonna pave. I don't have a good accurate estimate of when the paving company's gonna start. If it's gonna be tomorrow or if it's gonna be Thursday. I expect them to get here and get the prep work done this week. That's what I expect. But I don't have that, and sometimes it's not even given to us, right down to the day, because they're gonna watch the weather and be like, well, we're gonna get things prepped, and then, as long as it doesn't rain, maybe on Friday they'll start paving or whatever. So it's hard to really pin it down. If we try to post, okay, they're gonna pave, it's gonna be pretty close to the day that we'd hear maybe the day before, like they're gonna be out on, the North Road, we'll say tomorrow. We might be able to, post that, but it's hard to, be out too many days ahead without something changing.
So grading?
Grading, I don't know what the schedule is right now, but what they do is they'll just go out and grade everything. We try to send both graders out, so it's really kind of like either we're out grading everything or we're not. It's not, you can almost say, we're on, one side of town, we're starting on one side of town, and you can, and they're just. But we could try to offer up something in terms of, we're gonna be grading, the remainder of the week or something, we're gonna be starting on, on which side of town. We could give that amount of information up there. But again, that's gonna vary if we have a a rainy day in the middle of it, then we're gonna.
Well, I think always subject to change,
Yeah,
people
always
understand that.
have to change.
Thank you.
Yes, Emery?
I just have a couple, and they're all easy, but it does go along with Mr. Olszewski's problems. Do we have a schedule for, and are we on it, with, roadside mowing and trimming of road signs, which even in town are closing in, you can't see road signs because of our wonderful main growth that we have every spring and summer, so do we have a schedule on that? I'll follow Jane by saying the gravel road grading, is there a schedule? Are we on it? Are we maintaining it? Do we have enough manpower to do it? And along that, are we using the proper gravel and material when we have to put more gravel on the road top? And are we addressing our roads along with the hot spots that were wet in the spring and the mud season? We talk about it every year, the systematic, we catalog them, we schedule them for work, you know, are we following that? And to follow on as well, I have been out to the beach and these guys all want cooling centers, but the beach will be the biggest cooling center for the next 3 days. And when I was out there with no jokes, 2 weeks ago, picnic tables were all still up under the whatever. All I want to know is, are the picnic tables down? Has the beach been raked? Is the driveway ready? Are we ready with toilets at the beach? Because it's gonna hit hard, and will we be ready for that? And is it ready already?
Yeah, so it should be all set with toilets and picnic tables and raked and cleaned and all that stuff. As far as I know, we do not have a lifeguard on duty yet.
That was my last question.
So we will be without a lifeguard for now, but, there should be a sign that says no lifeguard on duty. It's not required that we have one, but we've not got, a lifeguard in place yet. That's the only thing that would be not totally complete.
Is that, we're in conjunction with the Y on that,
The Y staff says.
and they're working to try to get somebody or? Mhm.
It's a shortage everywhere.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so I know we talked about, there's a lot of sidewalks needing repaired. Do we have a schedule yet on what, I say little, we're gonna be able to do for the time being? But I think people would like to know, like, rough timeline of where and what is gonna get worked on. And then maybe what the plan kind of going is. I know it's piecemeal, so to speak, because of the cost, but if we could get something up that we can share, I think people would be happy to know we're slowly trying to pick away at things.
And so what it's looking like for sidewalks is that, normally how we'll do it is we'll put sidewalk work in the paving bid, and which we do in February. And so when we have a paving contractor, that will be part of that. And so these are disconnected this year because we had a paving bid, but we didn't know whether we were gonna have a sidewalk budget. So we are doing sidewalks separately. That will probably happen in the fall. And that's most likely to be, probably the, Pleasant Street, is where we're looking because that's a high priority area from the fire station, up to at least High Street, you know, maybe a little further. As you get further along, Pleasant Street, that's all new. So that's where we're focused on. It's probably gonna be done.
Okay. Town looks great with the flowers as always. If people go to some towns where they don't do that, it can be a little dismal and depressing. So it's great to come in and see some colors. So thank the volunteers for us. It's always nice to see them putting that work in. The voting went great. I was told, look at both sides. I also noticed that there were in the booth that even said that everything was there. So but I know human error happens. So tell them great job. I think it went really well and there was a good turnout. And for the whole EMS thing, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but those who don't know, I was a medic and EMT and all that fun stuff. And you have the EMS system, you have the firefighting system, and obviously they overlap. But from what I've seen across the nation and happening here is now that we are looking at launching this EMS system within our fire department, our own people who are already there are stepping up and saying, train me, let's go. So the idea that we're going to be stealing people from Northern Light, That is not how I look at it at all. We already have a resource that wants to do more. And, you know, firefighters, they like to work. They love their job. So when you're in a system like EMS, where, as it was said, sometimes the ladder doesn't have a lot of options and it's a pretty high burnout rate, you have firefighters who are already putting in work and saying, I want to do more, I want to help. So I think that we're going to see a lot of people who are already here stepping up and filling slots. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those very people go to Northern Light and say, guess what? I'm an EMT. I have extra availability. How can I help you? So I see this as a positive that we are going to pick our community, but I think we're going to see our local EMS system itself actually benefit from this as well. I don't think we're going to have like a mass exodus of people suddenly wanting to be a firefighter or EMT. That's a big transition, obviously. So I've supported from the beginning, and I know that people are worried about the cost, but a big chunk of it was covered by our ARPA funding. So while the numbers are there, don't let them scare you, because everyone said that if it was a really crazy number, we didn't have that extra money, it probably wouldn't have been a discussion we'd even consider, because that would be a large amount of money we'd be looking at.
And just to, thank you for bringing that up, Charlie, because it was puzzling to me, the whole process of this EMS thing. You know, we talked about it in great detail at this level and with the town budget advisory committee and the public hearing held by the town budget advisory committee. But when we actually got to the town meeting on April 27th, not a word was spoken about this EMS proposal. And then when we got to the public hearing on May 20th, prior to the vote on June 11th, again, no one said a word about Mayo EMS. Or our new proposal to start something with our own fire department. Now, whether people were fixated on other questions and that just kind of went over their head, I don't know, but it's right to talk about it now. Unfortunately, after the budget has already been approved and we're starting to go forward with this, but we'll try to create a more opportunity at this forum here going forward before. There's still a lot of work to do. Brian, you're not talking about starting this service until next spring at the earliest, right?
Yeah, originally next spring was our target goal. We had some great news last week, and that was due to capital equipment, and the lead times are now down to 6 weeks. So in a perfect world, if this system can be online by January, great. It's not a rush by any means. There's a lot of pieces and things that got to come together first. So we still got a long road ahead of us to make sure that all works, and like I said, a lot of talks, a lot of discussions with other agencies, but like I said, I think it's a good plan. I think it's good for the town. And we're not the first to do this by any means. Foreign Fire is doing it in Levant, Glenburn just put one in, Newport, elsewhere. It seems to be growing just because of the way public safety is, and I know Steph can back me up on this. They're on 90% of the calls with us, and they see it too. So nothing. No, you are on the spot. I'm just saying.
You're 100% right. And I think I know a lot of people have spoken to me about, well, what if we pull people away from Northern Light? Obviously we can't help that if that's what we do. That's an issue that Northern Light would have to deal with, in terms of why people want to leave there. And I don't even know that it will happen, but I do know that I personally know 3 people in EMS that have not been working in EMS for the last year or so, who have decided to come back and join the fire department to work in, for the ambulance. So they weren't working for Northern Light. They were out of EMS for whatever reasons. That's their own decision, but they've actually made the decision once they found out that we had an ambulance here to come back in to work for that ambulance, and they live in town. So the point of this is to benefit our citizens and make sure that we have an adequate response time. Because I will tell you, there is not much worse feeling to have than be on a scene with somebody who's having a medical emergency and there's nothing we can do about it because we can't legally transport. And we're waiting 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes sometimes for the ambulance to get there. And we have people there saying, why can't we just go? Why can't you take, whoever it is? And we can't. Legally, we can't. So that's a frustration that we've all seen at the street level, and it's happening more frequently.
So our intention is, as we get further along the plan on this, we realize a lot of people are catching up to this a little later, and it's not their fault because it wasn't brought up at some of your earliest meetings. But we'll place that item back on the agenda so we can have more thorough information on that.
Well, not to reinvent the wheel, but I agree with a lot of the conversation. Both Jack and I went to the regional meeting, and to me, it was a room full of compassionate, caring individuals who, again, are trying to work as a team. And as Brian said, this is not unique to Dover-Foxcroft. And again, it's coming to the Protection Committee. Joel, Tracy, and myself are on that. I believe it's our role to provide guidance through this process. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to, ask any of us. I have a list. Some of them will be unanswerable because it's kind of learn by doing. But we also have to have trust in the staff that we do have.
Any other comments by the board? All right, let's close the public session for the select board. No adjustments to the agenda needed that I'm aware of, Jack. We'll move on to unfinished business. At our last meeting, we had a discussion about a tax abatement application that we received from Mr. Hutchins here, who owns property right next to 72 Lincoln Street. We did not take action on that at the time because we wanted to hear from the code enforcement officer, also our fire chief, about the condition of the property next door at 72 Lincoln Street. That has been inspected in the interim, and we have an updated information on that. So Brian, share what we found. Okay. Someone else is talking. Just provide some updated information on the status of 72 Lincoln Street, and in fact, whether it is still a dangerous building.
So I went over last week and took a look at it. And I believe you have pictures and a letter from one of the building inspectors.
Right.
I was hoping to call him, 10 tonight, I can't get hold of them. The two plywood in the front, some of the rotten old timbers have been brought out. As you can see, the pictures in the basement that they've gone in, put new carrying beams and new supports to the foundation. The hash tried to plywood up some of the back closed in the open hole. I'm assuming his goal long term is to continue to keep fixing it up and stuff. The letter you have from the building inspector, he feels that it's, it's not a dangerous building anymore. Personally, I feel that the work he has put into it, he's heading in the right direction towards removing it from the dangerous building side. We mean an inspector, I would say, at this point, I think we should safely remove the dangerous building order off that. That's not my decision, that's up to the full board to decide. I know there's another taxpayer that wants to speak on behalf of that, but, I feel like the property owner is trying to move in the right direction, but it's been a long road to get here. This property's been in front of you guys numerous times for a very, very long time. So I hope we'll continue in the right direction and we won't go backwards again.
But typically if we find that it's not a dangerous building anymore, we do not get into micromanaging the pace at which the building is correct.
Falls back.
Right. Okay. So what's the board's thoughts on this, Cindy?
Well, I carefully read Mr. Salvucci's email to you, which said he doesn't believe it's a dangerous building at this time. So I would think we would remove it from that status, and I would move that at this time.
Comments?
Just to point out, I believe it was Ken Salvucci that was, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, with Ken was the same building inspector that was looking at it earlier. So, it's even more meaningful for the same guy who has said this is a dangerous building to now say it's no longer a dangerous building.
It's pretty cut and dried in my opinion, unless we want to belabor the point. So we don't want to. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to remove it as a dangerous building.
Can I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
I just totally agree with all that. I'm just wondering about with Ben and where it has been a dangerous building, and we may remove that. Are we permitted, whatever the word may be, to ask Ben to present to us? Give us some plans, or no, that's part of my.
Again, it's not been our practice to micromanage the pace at which repairs are made on a building. You could ask him to come in, but he's not obligated to do so.
Right.
But I think that if we follow through and remove it, as a dangerous building, that allows us to then go on to item B, the application for abatement of that. So, let's have a vote. All those in favor of removing the status? Thank you. So that's no longer considered, a dangerous building. Now, Mr. Hudson's application for abatement was based on the fact that, he felt it was a dangerous building and devalued his property. There, you've since had some other thoughts about that. You do feel that some progress is being made. Is that correct?
I do. As I sent an email,
We did
and I'll
receive
say in front of the public that, I think at the last, board meeting that I was in attendance in, I had made some comments, and I still, I stand behind most of them. As I had written in the application for abatement, at the time of the application for abatement, it was a dangerous building. Had been, for, I believe, multiple years at that time.
At least 3
With basically no progress made on it. Between then and now, what I've thought about are words that were said by the board, that the removal of the barn had been made. I still don't necessarily agree that all the progress has been made, but there has been tremendous progress made on the property. I agree that at no time should any form of the government get involved with, wanting to know what progress anybody makes on their own private property. Once it's not dangerous, it's not dangerous. And it shouldn't be in the hands of the government at that point. So, well, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, good.
Make your decision.
Thank you. All right, so we need to, we postponed action on the abatement application, at our prior meeting. Does anyone want to make a motion to either approve or deny the application before us?
So this is a bit of a reiteration, and I know Bill is here, if we have further questions for him, but, based on the advice of our tax expert, I move that we deny the abatement.
And that was consistent with the findings of the town assessor and the assessment committee, correct?
Correct.
Is there, is there a second to Cindy's?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? You're not voting or?
I'm not in favor.
Oh, you okay? So 6, did you vote? So you didn't vote at all? So 5 to 1 with 1 vote. So the motion passed. All right, moving on to new business. The first item are request for liquor license renewal and also special amusement permit renewal for the Center Theater. Those are require 2 separate votes. Mr. Myers, you need to say anything about this? Or it's the same thing we hear you out every year. So.
Yeah, I like to think all the amusement theater is special, but,
And I understand you have a Whoopie Pie Festival coming.
there is something called it, and in fact, I'm modeling the new.
I noticed that you had the shirt on.
Oh.
Very stylish.
Motion, all right. I was on Channel 7 this morning talking about the festival, so I figured I better dress up a little bit.
Yeah. All right. All right, so, we need a motion then to, on the application for a liquor license renewal. Joel,
Motion to approve the liquor license renewal for Center Theater.
Second?
seconded, any discussion? Do you have discussion?
I just wanna, Patrick, your servers are all certified and
Yep.
certificate of safe alcohol serving. And do you serve alcohol on nights that it's not a special?
No, we just, there's nothing on our liquor license that specifies that, but our policy is only to serve it for live events. Certainly not at, general admission movies. If we have a private rental and the renters know that we sell alcohol and request it, we'll usually sell it to them as well, but not for matinees of Inside Out 2, for instance.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Council?
On the application, Patrick, page 11 of 11, it says percentage of ownership. Do you know what that means?
Well, it's the application, we have to file as a corporation, because the theater is an incorporated nonprofit.
And so the application is coming at a corporation more as a private corporation wanting to know the board of that corporation would be owners of the corporation and therefore would own that percentage of the corporation. As a nonprofit, it's really the community that owns the theater. But for the sake of the form, we have to list the board of directors, divide 100% by the number of directors of the board and say that's their ownership of the theater.
Okay.
Sorry, I have one more.
Go ahead.
Normally, Chief Burns speaks about the ongoing stuff that may be happening at the proposed licensee. Have you got anything to add, Chief, on the theaters? Any raucous behavior that, you know?
No, I don't recall this.
So that you're not having any troubles? No.
Yeah, I would just point out that I'll abstain, because I know members of the public have been concerned about my conflict of interest. Jane asked me if I was getting wealthy from my 10%.
You get
free
free popcorn. Free popcorn. All right, are we ready for a vote? All those in favor of the items? Thank you. And the vote is 6-0. All right, we also need to act on the application to renew the special amusement permit for the Central Theater. Is there a motion for that?
Make a motion that we approve the special amusement permit for Center Theater.
So second by Joel, discussion on that. They have a list of all the things they do there for amusements, so. All right, all those in favor? And then also an abstention. All right, so we'll move on to new business item B, Mayo Mill Dam, next steps. So we had the election on June 11th, and people want to keep the dam. We turn our attention now to making the dam in compliance, I guess, with federal regulations, which is a responsibility of the town. Jack, what are your thoughts on how we do that and the time frame involved? I know that, that we, as Mr. Merrill said, this could be expensive, but we're not talking about spending that money in the near future. It's going to take a long time before we can get our information together, even to seek approval for a bond that we pay for that. So give us some of your thoughts on timing and how we achieve compliance with that.
Well, the short answer is one step at a time.
Right.
And so what's the next immediate step? I think is where we're at. So in the context of Mayo Mill Dam and the context of it being under FERC jurisdiction, FERC only has jurisdiction over it because it is a hydro facility. If it were not a hydro facility, it was just a dam with no hydro component, FERC would ultimately not have jurisdiction at the end of the jurisdictional state of Maine. So first point to think about is FERC's involvement is only because of hydro. Now it's a long process for FERC to be to relinquish its authority over it, but it all hinges on whether there's going to be a hydro project there or not. And so what FERC has been requesting for the past decade is their jurisdiction and their compliance component is dam safe. So everything has to be safe. The powerhouse has to be safe. The dam has to be safe. The retaining walls have to be safe. Everything has to be safe. That's what FERC is fixated on. And so what they've identified as far as dam safety, they ask for us to describe how we're going to address that. And the answer has been, because we've been working with a developer to on reestablishing hydro for the past 10 years. The answer has always been, we'll incorporate whatever is needed into that hydro project. That has not been the case over the last few years because the developer is no longer pursuing hydro. And so we're left with now, if we are going to resume a pursuit of hydro, then we need to do that. If we're not going to resume a pursuit of hydro, then we have to surrender our, I don't want to call it licensure, because we heard in this whole discussion references to an exemption, references to licensure, it gets nuanced. We are not subject to a license, we're subject to the terms of an exemption from licensure, which still means there's just a shorter list of things we need to do in order to restart hydro. Shorter list than if we had to be licensed. But we either need to start pursuing hydro, or we need to submit a plan to surrender that ability. Okay, and so what we have, our most recent communication with FERC was there's no current pursuit of hydro. And as soon as there's no current pursuit of hydro, then by default, we have to pursue surrendering that exemption, so to speak. That's where we're at, because FERC is expecting that by June 30th, 2025, literally exactly a year from now, we would submit to them a plan to surrender that exemption for generating hydro. And that has really nothing to do whether the dam stays or goes. You can generate hydro, and obviously you're gonna have a dam. You can surrender the exemption to generate hydro, and you can still have a dam, okay? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter in terms of whether the dam stays or goes, but that's literally step one. Because if we're not gonna be involved in the hydro business, then ultimately FERC will exit jurisdiction and the dam will be under the jurisdiction of the state of Maine. And FERC just either wants it one way or another. They either want, something under their jurisdiction or not. And that's really where we're at. So I think, the key question, the key step, the key thing to focus on is, are we in fact going to resume the pursuit of hydro or not? I think that's the next thing.
So as part of the year-long study we did, an engineering firm called Gomez and Sullivan did do a review of the facility there. And their finding was that chances of successfully restarting hydro generation was remote, just because of the amount of money that it would take to do so would not produce enough power to provide a profit. Now, I understand a lot of people that want to keep the dam are leery of that study because it was commissioned by environmental groups and they thought it was perhaps biased. I don't agree with them, but I can understand how that perception would exist and persist. Is there any value in commissioning another study to look at the findings of that one so that we can put this to bed once and for all about whether hydro is either a remote possibility or is something that we can look at again? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's in some ways exactly where we are. Is, what would it take? What would it take to, I guess, understand the hydro in a way that we could all agree, achieve that consensus as to whether hydro is a worthy pursuit or not, in terms of cost benefit. Because again, it really has nothing to do with whether the dam stays or goes, but it's whether we want to, embark on investing in, a complete rehab of the powerhouse and, the turbines, just everything, and the permitting aspects of all that. I mean, that's really what the decision is.
And the dam can remain irregardless of whether hydroelectricity is produced there, just to maintain the impoundment that people are used to, although we would still have to meet the safety requirements that have been pointed out to us that are deficient.
Yeah. And so, really, what process gets us to that point? Is it having a second consultant go over the Gomez and Sullivan study, critique it, strengths of the study, weaknesses of the study, gaps, data gaps? We heard a lot of feedback about how the revenue model didn't take into account specific Maine law in terms of net metering, we heard that. So there's, that would be one example of a, gap that, could be looked at. Is that a positive move forward? Does that move us to a closer to be able to decide, whether hydro stays or goes? I just put it out there.
Right. Well, thoughts on the board, didn't you?
Do you have an idea about the cost of such a study?
I don't.
I think it's pretty clear that, obviously, the town lacks the expertise to, any town employees lack the expertise to be able to determine whether or not we've got hydro or any possibility of making hydro work. We have the studies. We also have kind of anecdotal feedback that it doesn't look very good. And if it had, we would have jumped on it a long time ago. So I think, although it seems that the preponderance of evidence so far suggests that hydro is not viable, we need to, because the townspeople have essentially said they don't have full faith in what we've done so far, then we need to hire somebody who has the expertise, and whatever that costs is, it's just gonna have to be one of those things that comes along with keeping the dam. But it seems that we could move fairly quickly on this part because there has been work done so far, and that the scope of the question is rather narrow. Just, is it economically viable or not?
And, a lot of what Gomez and Sullivan did was, existing conditions, the specifications, the capacity. There's a lot of valuable data that's, that's what, what it is. It's, conclusions, it is, what's missing, so I think that somebody could take that study and assess it in terms of, what's missing, or, are there, different conclusions we had, or different, ways to look at the data, or is there, any more field work that needs to be done, any other data that needs to be collected? But that will go a long way, I think, toward, being able to see really where we stand, I guess.
In terms of finalizing our ability to be in compliance with their, if we can get that part taken care of one way or the other, then we move on to, all right, how much is it gonna cost to repair the dam, and how are we gonna finance that? And when do we pull the trigger on starting that project? But yeah, the hydro study, I think, would be instructive as at least in answering part of that question.
Just as a follow-up, I think, in order, because this is the first thing we need to figure out, and it is narrow in scope, I think we should engage a consultant for just this portion of it, not having it intertwined with any of the impoundment and fish ladder, any of the other stuff, because that's a whole bigger thing. It seems like we could just move quickly, get this question answered. And if we lump it in with a larger look at the entire dam, it could slow things down.
Well, plus we have to address this for the first issue, so.
Exactly. It's got to be addressed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, anything we can do to get FERC off of our back would be a positive development. Other thoughts?
Just.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So the person that developed the mill, John Arnold, was that who it was? Did we ever get any documentation on what he was trying to develop? And I mean, I understand that was his goal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So did we ever see how much progress he made, or anyone he spoke to? Like maybe there's something that he was working on that might shed some light or help us in any way that he's already done potentially, that we might not have to spend money on. But I mean, if he was working on it, I would like to see what the plan might have been or what progress was made.
Well, that's a good point, because that's something that we could also give the consultant. So, Arnold Development Group was, trying to ever since they got involved with the project and ever since, the mill opened, they were pursuing a hydro project. They pursued it with various consultants. Went back to the drawing board with, companies experienced with low flows, higher efficiencies, really, I think, turned it, every which way. They got to the point where they getting nuanced again. The exemption which authorizes the generation of power dates back to, I think, the early 80s, that exemption. And it was tailored for Moosehead Energy's power production with the old setup. And so to go in and do a complete rehab, which is what our development group was proposing, it requires an amendment. FERC had to grant an amendment to the exemption, an amendment to the authorization, basically. So there was an amendment application that was developed, which specified all the improvements, the turbines, basically everything that was going to happen under the proposal for rehab and hydro. And that was submitted to FERC in, I want to say, very late 2019, I think. I've got the dates right. It was very late 2019. And then after submittal, there's a review period. It's fairly lengthy review period. And while it was in the FERC review period, that's when our development group notified me that they would no longer pursue a project, that they were basically, they were out. So we notified FERC to basically withdraw the exemption application because there was no project. Now, maybe there would be a similar one, but it wasn't going to be that one. So that would be something too that we could include. We had an exemption application for a new configuration, a new sort of approach to this back in 2019 or 2020. It was in that time frame. And that could be looked at coupled with Gomez and Sullivan to say, okay, critique the conclusions of the Gomez and Sullivan study, critique this application, give us a total opinion of feasibility based on these, I think, two pretty key pieces of work, right? I think that would be helpful to do that.
No, I was just gonna say, but I know you said 2019, but I would think that if the Arnold group was working on it, we're talking about data that's 10, 15 years old. So that's, in the way that the world moves now, that's ancient history. So, and I would think any consulting firm, engineers would be saying, thank you, we'll do it ourselves. So it would be wonderful if they can use some of what we have, but you would think they would say, no, thanks, we'll do our own.
I think they'd review what we have. If you're right. They would wanna do their own stuff.
But still, I mean, it needs to step ahead.
Right.
So my question is the who. Do we have lots of entities out there? Is this gonna be an RFP? If in fact some folks were not, agreeable with that study, they're gonna be agreeable with this one, and where's the trust level? What's the expense, et cetera, et cetera. Because when preparing for this, I wrote, we need to be, not us and them, we need to be we. We're in this together. My sense is that we need to understand the issues. Why do people vote no? I need to hear. I want to hear. Also to have some sort of open forum. I think people come to these meetings but don't feel free to speak. I think we're constrained up here because we have rules that we need to follow. But to have an open forum on this damn issue, so that we can do it. And, if the result is to have a study group, we need to have a balanced study group. The yes and the no's to come together, that this is an us problem.
And we have to.
Hence my question.
We have to accept, at some point, we have to accept the professional expertise of the engineering firm. We can't hire an engineering firm to give us the answer that we particularly want. So yeah, that requires everyone to be on the same page. But I think it would be helpful to finally nail that question down. And I don't know how you can do that without having professional engineers look at the project with a fresh view and give us their opinion. We may not like their opinion, depending on where we're standing right now, but at least it will be a way to break the log here.
So this will go out RFP and or if people have cousins or relatives that are in this line, have them bid, correct?
Well, so I think you hit the nail on the head. Whoever does this, we have to all agree that this is, somebody that is able to do this and able to give us, an objective read on the data. So I would suggest that we have a process where we have come up with a short list of qualified consultants that we would all agree could easily do this. We have a process where we develop the RFP, so we specify exactly what we want them to do. Put it out to those companies on the list. Could be 3, 4, 5, whatever, but ones that we all feel are absolutely in a position to do this for us. And then review the responses and pick one. Because I think having the consultant that we all feel is somebody that we all want to work with is a very important part of this process right now. Because we are depending on this outcome to take the next step, whatever it is.
Yeah, just curious about the source of, what's our resource to go to? Is it MMA? Is it an engineering, consortium? How do
Are
we
you
find?
find people in the business?
Steve, we have Steve here from former CFP employee. Do you have some thoughts on that, Steve?
I know this is out of order, but Gomez and Sullivan did a good job. They were the ones that analyzed the hydro. I don't think anybody questioned their foot per second, their flows and all that stuff. It was how they calculated the energy savings and paybacks. There was a question. So you don't need to hire a consultant engineer to start all over again. They did a pretty good job. Gomez and Sullivan. So if you take that report and hire somebody to really do an analysis on the cost benefit ratio, you might be there. You don't need to start at scratch.
Are you familiar with engineering companies in northern New England that do that type of work?
No, not really. I used
Well,
to be.
that's the thing. I mean, when was the last time you heard of a new hydro project that went online? You're not seeing that, so I mean.
That Kleinschmidt out of Pittsfield.
Kleinschmidt is a well-known firm, and, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, my name's Cheryl Piazza, and I think we just need to build on the report that you guys did last year. You did a heck of a lot of work, it's good. But we also need to think about, looking at hydro styles before we even jump into engineering, because you don't necessarily need to build off the dam in the old stuff. That's gonna cost a mint. Try something new. They have all sorts of new technology that's come out, and that's what we need to explore before we jump in. Since we have a deadline of next year, June 30th, 2025, we have time to explore.
Yeah.
I want to clarify a point.
Yeah.
Which I just want, it's important. June 30th, 2025 sounds like, a long time. But what FERC is expecting on June 30th is not just the decision about, okay, you're out with hydro. They're expecting that because right now, by default, we're out because there's no project. So they're expecting us to present them, basically, it's a decommissioning plan for the hydro component. And the surrender plan that they're looking for actually speaks to, because FERC isn't going to just sort of exit stage right, right after you decide whether we're doing energy or not. What they do is they say, okay, you're not in the potentially you're not in the hydro business anymore, but you want to keep the assets in place. You want to keep the dam and the fishway in place. Do you want energy? Because the only purpose of it is for energy, but you want to keep the energy assets there with us gone. They're going to say, we need to have a plan before we can leave our jurisdiction. We have to have a plan for the dam now to be repaired, to be made safe, for fish passage to be, fully compliant, And it all has to be done before their final exit. So it's one thing to submit the surrender plan, and you have to basically outline in detail everything you're gonna do to fix the dam, everything you're gonna do to improve fish passage. It will take a year to write that. If we knew today whether we were in or out of hydro, it would take a year to write that. And so we have to, I think, try to be on track and try to understand that we have a timeline to make this decision on hydro that's not June 30th. If we're not gonna do hydro, then we need to be working on a surrender plan. And if we are gonna do hydro, then we need to basically update our filing with FERC that we are now, back in pursuit of a hydro project. And then they'll say, and the very next question is, okay, then when are you gonna get all the dam safety stuff, addressed that, we've been talking about? So, and that'll be where the conversation shifts. So Steve made a good point that Gomez and Sullivan did a very thorough assessment of existing conditions, measuring flows, capacity. I agree that they didn't take in the net metering model. And so it may be a case where it's a consulting firm that we maybe look to that has a lot of experience on the economic side of assessing revenue potential given certain regulations, what the net metering allows for. One thing, I think, my limited understanding of net metering, that is basically how you realize cost savings, right? You have net metering, so you're selling power back to the grid and you get offsets. So if we were able to find where we would have offsets, we'd have to figure out how to turn that into money, because we already have probably 80+% of our energy consumption already offset. So we wouldn't be able to provide that offset on the net metering, so that's another piece of it. But still, that's probably the biggest unanswered question right now is the revenue potential. And getting to agreement on that. And whether it's enough to justify it.
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to the payback criteria for the town too. So, are you willing to invest in a hydro that is 10 years or 20 years? You're just here for life. It's not a typical business person, there's no capital venture is going to take on a hydro because they want returns after 3 to 5 years. But if you're a town utility, are you willing to 15 years, 20 years? What's your payback criteria?
That's, we've spent 17 years trying to find someone that will be interested in this and zero interest.
You won't.
So if we're going to do it, probably the town of Dover-Foxcroft ends up doing it. Some towns have had, I used to live in Madison, they have Madison Electric Works, they had their own electric utility, but we've never been there. So.
It's actually in our comprehensive plan.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
But I'm not sure we want to do it.
Along with what Mrs. Conway said, I'm not really prepared yet to accept that everyone that voted no really necessarily wanted to rebuild the hydro portion of this.
Right, I agree.
I fully think that a lot of the no voters voted no to maintain the dam to keep the aesthetics and the conservation value of upriver. And as I said in the vote to Mr. Arnold, I respected your opinion on that greatly when you voiced that, and I still do. What I still maintain the opinion of. The hydro side of this, I don't think will ever be economically viable. What I would love to be able to do is sit down and, as Mrs. Conway said, and find a way to come together to maintain that dam, because overwhelmingly the town said we want that dam. But make sure that maybe we don't want the hydro side. And if that's the case, rip that stuff out, go to FERC and tell them we don't want the oversight of FERC because we're not going to do the hydro. We want the dam because the town wants the aesthetics of it. So get FERC out of this, maintain the dam because of what we currently have, and keep it like it is.
And that way we do, I know, I'm not trying to say, oh, it's a simple thing to do. I know it's not. But we eliminate FERC in the process. We don't have their governmental oversight. The town gets to go down to the state level versus federal level of oversight. We hope we all get what we want, and we just kind of move on from this.
Because we have to figure out how much it's gonna cost.
But it's gonna cost. It is gonna cost.
Right, and that's the question well,
But we.
will the cost be what we can afford?
I understand.
Tom,
Good to see you.
I think that the thing about hydro is that some people believe that we're not going to have to pay that much to fix the dam because we're gonna have a revenue stream.
Yeah.
So I agree with Barry that it looks pretty dim that we're going to have hydro providing anything, a net benefit to us. But I don't, the thought of going to the townspeople and asking for potentially bonding out millions of dollars, and then I know it's gonna happen, if they say, well, why don't we have hydro paying for it? Well, we toss that into the dustbin because it's not viable. They're gonna say, well, we don't believe you. And so now we're really angry and we don't wanna raise the taxes because you mishandled the potential. So we, unfortunately, even though it looks next to zero chance of this happening, I think we have to go forward with looking at it again with certain adjustments for net metering and also the concept that this doesn't have to be a profit center. But will it pay for itself and defer some of the costs from maintaining the dam? We need to figure that out. And we obviously, as Jack says, we need to figure it out like right now.
Well, let's just move forward and see who we can find to give us this information so that we're not just swimming around in our own stew for any longer. And let's put the word out that we.
Because there are other issues facing the town of Dover-Foxcroft besides
There
the
are.
dam, and it would be nice to move forward on some of those. So what I'm hearing is the board developing a consensus that they would like us to go forward and investigate hydropower potential through some kind of engineering RFP.
Yes.
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 And that gives Jack a marching order here. Okay? Okay, again, this is,
Can I just make one question?
well, this is just for the board, but since everyone wants to
I know.
talk, yes, go ahead.
I understand. I'm out of line. Sandy Perkins, I live here in town. What I would like to suggest is, I'm in total agreement that we need to do that kind of study to put people's fears and distrust to rest. I would suggest that you form some kind of small committee, whatever you want to call it. It has some members of the select board. I think you need to have some members of people who are very much for the dam, keeping the dam, and people who are very much against keeping the dam. Because there seems to have become, I think it's a good thing, a level of communication and engagement in the town. And I think if you have some people, I don't want to use sides, but from both opinions, participate in hearing that and deciding that the answer is acceptable, you will have much better luck convincing the public that you have indeed found an answer or not. Because honestly, if just you guys hire a consultant and get an answer and come back to us and say, this is what they said, you are not gonna solve your public perception.
We'll just hear what we've already been hearing with this, I don't believe what you said, so. It fits in my belief system, and therefore I'm against.
Correct.
Yes.
Sandy just voiced what I wanted to say, and I'm still a little vague about the process from here on out. Is it your intentions, or could it be your intentions to fully decide where we go from here? Cost studies, whatever it is, or are we gonna have another voice in here through a vote on a budget? Where are we going?
Yeah, if we're looking at borrowing millions of dollars to fix a dam and take out a bond that's going to be paid back over 15 years and affect our tax rate for a generation, I think we probably have to get voter approval for that. But when we, Jack, I mean, we're talking about, millions of dollars. So, yeah.
Yeah, but we went through this probably maybe before. And it never created the level of trust that people needed. And I'd like to see us avoid that. The lady with the red shirt, I'm sorry, I can't read your name.
Jane
Jane
Conroy.
Conroy.
Thank you, Jane. But she kind of voiced that message that we still all recognize that there's gonna be costs involved. And we all still have ideas on how to mitigate some of that stuff, but we know in the end, it's not just you people up here, it's all of us, it's gonna share in it.
Yeah, we're just your representatives. You, believe it or not, you did elect us to make some of these decisions, but you know, what I want to avoid at all costs is another, schism in the town. We go to the voters with a bond request for how many millions of dollars to fix the dam. People look at that and say, no, that's too expensive. They vote it down. And then where are we? We're back to square one. We'll have wasted 3 or 4 years, not accomplished a damn thing without any resolution to the problem. So, at least let's move forward with some action on this. So I think, we've identified something that makes a certain amount of logic in looking at the hydro question. Have we actually voted on this now, or? Okay, all right, we've got a motion and a second. All right, are all people in favor of that motion? If so, signify in the universal sign by raising your hand. Okay, all right, that is a 7-0 vote to go forward with, and to receive an RFP to look at the hydro aspect. The more data we gather, the closer we get to a final resolution of this. As Jack said, the clock is ticking, but at the same token, we can't do this in the next 10 days, right? Yeah?
Just the motion in second, did you get that? Did you get him in the motion in second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I got Jane.
Yeah.
Jane and Dover.
So, and it's 7-0 vote. Okay. Steve?
So, because we are on such a tight timeline, and regardless of any sort of public input, we gonna do a RFP anyway, so we just voted to do that, good. But I think we should, in whichever subcommittee we have that seems most appropriate, I think we should formulate an idea for, as essentially a town sanctioned board, from constituents, and set that up, get that rolling. So that by the time the RFP comes back with information, we've got our public input set up. Which subcommittee would be best to?
This has been under,
Promotion and development has been the one.
Is it really that? Is that the best one to keep it in?
Well, since I'm on that, and I just spent a year and a half of my life, going through this, I'm not chomping at the bit to do it again. But we can, we don't have to limit it to an existing committee. We can form a task force of interested people from this board and interested people from the community, both people that, think that getting rid of the dam is not good, and people who think it's good, and just thrash it out. I mean, that's how democracy works.
Right, well, I was thinking more or less that to go to subcommittee draws up a proposal for how many people are going to be involved.
Do that on the admin.
That was my thinking, is that, admin committee, just take a look at it and make proposals as to the size of the board, the makeup of the board, and, of this new
You
committee.
want a task force that's inclusive enough, but not so many members that you can't reach consensus, right?
Exactly.
Which is always the problem.
Right, and also you want to have enough people that that in any given meeting, 2 or 3 people are not going to be
Sure.
available. So anyway, that's what I'm suggesting, is we come back to the full board with a proposal for how to make this committee, functional.
We'll work on that over the next few weeks. Or our next meeting. All right, so we've got a way to move forward a little bit here on this, and, any final thoughts on Mayo Mill Dam before we move on to the rest of the agenda? Okay, good. We have a vote. Item C, orders of the municipal officers, and we have 6 different, items that are all spelled out, and I'm not gonna ask anyone to read both paragraphs of the first one. So the first order is item 1, payments applied to oldest taxes due, payments applied to outstanding taxes for the year 2024, 2025.
Move to approve as written.
Move to approve is written, is perfect. Seconded by Joel. Any discussion? All those in favor? Seven's it up. All right, the next one is interest rate on past due taxes and sewer charges for the 2024, 2025 years, and the interest is 8.5% annually.
Move to approve as written.
Okay, seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Jane. All those in favor? That is so. The next one is interest rate on abated taxes for the next year, and that is 4.5% annually. Is there a motion to that effect?
Move to approve as written.
Second, seconded by Steve. All those in favor? Cool. Item number 4, prepayment of taxes. Believe it or not, there are some people who actually prepay their taxes. Yeah, I know. Not in that category. Okay, so move to authorize the tax collector or treasurer to accept prepayments of taxes. Welcome to that effect. So, second?
Second.
Joel got it. All those in favor? 7 to nothing. Okay. Item number 5, sewer assessment due dates. That'll be January 31st, 2025 for quarters ending June 30th, 2024, and September 30th, 2024, and establish June 30th, 2025 for quarters ending on December 31st and March 31st. Motion to that effect?
Move to establish the schedule
As written, okay. Second?
Second.
By Jane. All those in favor? Vote. The sewer rate schedule. Move to set the sewer rate schedule for next year at base rate $99.05 for 0 cubic feet to 1,200 cubic feet and 10.35 for 100 cubic feet in excess of 1,200. Motion to that effect?
Move to set the sewer rate
Thank you,
as
Cindy. As written and seconded by Jane. All those in favor? That's a vote. 7 to nothing. We move on to the town manager's report.
I'll be brief. Just a few things. So one of the projects that we've been working on, this year is we refer to it as the Villages, Partnership Initiative. That's for the Maine Department of Transportation. That's the project where we had a big public meeting, in this room back in March. And we had maps laid out all over the room, and we had people walk around and put sticky notes on where there are places where we could make improvements to the downtown, whether it's crosswalks or sidewalks or, amenities in downtown. That group came back to town last week and basically did a sidewalk and looked at a lot of the areas really all the areas, where we got feedback. And they're working on basically a preliminary design of what the improvements would look like. And we should see that probably early August. And then we'll reconvene a meeting and they'll present basically what they've come up with based on that first meeting. But the whole point of that is to be able to write a competitive, for the DOT to help us. Actually, they would submit a competitive grant application for a significant amount of federal funding that would go into making those improvements for the town. And there would be a matching component, but it would be 20% matching component. That would be a combination of town and state money. So it'd be 80% federal. So it would be a huge, it'd be and the scope of the projects that we're building on would be several $1 million. So it'd be 80% of several $1 million potentially. And then through federal funding.
It's such a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an opportunity that's going to come around again for comprehensive, and we're talking about things like, we have a sidewalk all the way up West Main Street. Potentially there'd be sidewalks on both sides. Of the street. Things like that, things that, you saw at the first meeting. We talk about Lincoln Street Bridge all the time, and we have been approved through the SEDS process for construction funding. Now we have to be approved with the FEMA programmatic requirements. So the earmarked construction funding for us for Lincoln Street Bridge. Now we have to actually submit an application. I think it first goes to Maine Emergency Management and then on to FEMA, so that we just basically check all the boxes for the programmatic requirements for Lincoln Street Bridge. And Alcina, as our local EMA with the county, she's helping us pull all the pieces together for securing that construction funding. So we've been busy on that. We expect that to be submitted this week, so we'll be get some initial review from Maine Emergency Management. And then we have some pieces of correspondence. We have a couple of items from R68. We have, as Jane mentioned, the fiscal year's list of buildings permit.
Higher education, CDS.
Oh, did I skip
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Which is the biggest news of all.
That's the best news of all.
The best news of all.
Yeah. Yeah, so we submitted a SEDS application April, was it? Back in April, and there's one major hurdle, well, there's two major hurdles to get over. One is that each of our congressional offices support the project, because all the projects that are submitted to our congressional offices don't all make it to Washington. They don't all become part of what our delegation proposes and supports. And that's a big cut, and there are a lot of projects that are cut out of that. So our application will be a $2 million total project to rehabilitate Penquist Higher Education Center. What we propose is what we refer to as the Penquist Regional Vocational Technical Partnership. And that would involve a partnership between Foxcroft Academy and Eastern Maine Community College to offer vocational and technical classes and programming focused on grades 9 through 14. So it would be high school age vocational programs and then technical college programs. And it would also fit in with what is currently going on there, which is adult ed operates out of Penquist Higher Education Center. And it would be in conjunction with and in partnership with the adult ed program. And so the scenario is that Eastern Maine Community College currently owns the building. It was formerly the Mayo Street School, as everybody knows, most people know. The town, back in the very late 90s, redeveloped it as a closed school and secured funding from the state to, it was $1.5 million to do a rehab in 2000. So there's a lot of work that's already been done. It's not a 40 or 50-year-old building that people have just forgotten. There's a lot of work done in 2000. But the town then turned it over to Eastern Maine Community College to run a higher education center, which it has done for the past 25 years. Eastern Maine Community College no longer wants to own the building. They want to be a tenant. They want to work with others for offering programs. And so this would be where we get another batch of money. Foxcroft Academy would have a lead role. Ultimately, they would own it, but we will probably need to own it until we get this proposal if it goes through. Right now, it's being recommended for funding in Washington, but the federal budget has to pass and it has to make it through the appropriations committee's recommendations and so forth. We weren't gonna know until the end, close to the end of the calendar year. But Eastern Maine Community College, does want to exit its ownership of the building no later than, end of June.
Oh, no,
2025.
okay.
That is another directive, so one way or another, they will, not own it, so, we either agree to, own it, and I mean, we can, doesn't mean we have to hang on to it long term, but, you know, we gave it to them, they're offering it back to us for free. They'll either, they'll either give it back to us or they will, dispose of it somewhere, dispose of it somewhere. That, the context, but this is really good.
Well, it's an outstanding job, Jack, by you pushing that forward. There's nothing that this community, this whole area needs more than more access to education. Every business owner you talk to said they can't find workers. And now we have a place that we can provide work. So that's positive.
Yeah, thank you for having that vision forward.
Well,
It's been a long time that it's been kind of not quite what we hoped it would be.
and I know that Foster Academy is very interested in being a part of much greater access to vocational training in this area. And so they're very excited about being a part of being able to do this right here in town, with the community college. Very excited about it.
Any comments on Jack's report? We have an executive session planned. Does anyone have any burning remarks that they need to share during the closing remarks? Okay. How about a motion to go into executive session with our town attorney who's been patiently waiting in the back of the room?
Working back there.
Yeah.
so-
Go on to executive session as written.
MRSA, section 405, item 60, to discuss rights and duties of municipal officers with our town attorney. All right, so that is James'
second.
motion and seconded by Steve. Okay. Steve, all those in favor? That's 7-0, and that's 8. The Celtics tip off. Not that I am not focused on this meeting.
Flowers.
Yeah. Thank you for attending tonight, folks.